Now, the South African National Editors Forum, or Sanef, condemns what has been viewed as threats to political journalist Qaanitah Hunter, who reported about a meeting involving high-ranking ANC officials and former President Jacob Zuma, allegedly plotting to overthrow President Ramaphosa. After receiving an image of a gun from ANC Women's League, Meokgo Matuba, who was part of the meeting, Hunter questioned on Twitter why the SG of the ANC Women's League sent her this picture of a gun when she called her with questions. And what happened after that was that Matuba denied even being in Durban that day. Obviously, subsequently, we've now heard that she was in Durban, and we've seen photographs of her in Durban around that meeting. But in studio with us, we've got Kate Skinner, the Executive Director of the South African National Editors Forum, to talk more about this. Kate, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in.
It's good to be here.
So, obviously, straight after this happened, Sanef attempted to talk to the ANC Women's League SG as well, or the ANC for that matter, because she's gone and said that, you know, she's apologized, but said that it's like a phone that the whole family uses. Everybody uses this phone. It's not just her phone. Is this good enough for you?
Well, I have to say that we thought it was rather strange, you know, because who in her family would be sending, you know, this image of a gun? And, you know, it was very targeted. I mean, you know, what had happened is that the journalist Qaanitah Hunter had just asked her questions about this meeting. And obviously it was a very contentious issue. So, yes, you know, she has apologized, but for us it's still very problematic. For us, the big issue is that you don't want leadership in any political party, but I mean particularly the very powerful ruling party, to be threatening journalists and to get an image of a gun when you have been asking questions from you know, somebody in leadership is very intimidating, and it makes you think, wow, you know, next time maybe I shouldn't ask those questions. And obviously we can't have journalists not asking questions.
That's
where it's very chilling.
Yeah,
it's very chilling.
That is a blatant threat. There's no other way of looking at that. And if you you look at this and automatically it is just basically saying, you better keep quiet.
Back off.
Back off.
But back off in a quite a radical way, because a gun is like your life is under threat.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of mild image. It's quite a violent image. It's like, this is a gun, and you know what happens with guns.
Absolutely.
It's scary.
Do you think it'll be difficult to actually figure out? I suppose I should be asking this to a telecoms or cell phone expert, because you know, as she said, it's, you know, it's not. It's a public phone. Everybody uses it. I mean, I don't understand what a public phone is, but the bottom line is, if the ANC really wanted to get to the bottom of this and find out who actually sent this, could they? Do you think they'd be willing to find this out?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, it seems that, you know, she made the apology, and then there's a sense of like, let's leave it there. So that's my sense of what's happened. But I think also what's important to say is that it wasn't only the SG that was making these disparaging comments about the journalist, but also the spokesperson, Mabe, was making a comment. In fact, on SABC, he said something like, you know, journalists are following our leaders.
Yes.
And in fact, that's very intimidating. But that's the role of journalists.
Absolutely.
We should be following leaders.
Yeah.
That's what we do, you know, in order to get the story. And so, it was kind of very disparaging of journalists, very disparaging of the work that we do as journalists and the work we must do as journalists.
Yeah.
And so that was worrying, because now you were having, you know, Mabe, but you were also having the SG Matuba, all of them putting forward quite disparaging remarks about journalists, and also basically saying journalists shouldn't be doing their job, which of course they've got to do.
And that's a worry, because I think a lot of people, we've come from a very difficult time where, you know, where the media has been sort of pushed down a lot, but it has managed to come through and unveil so many things about state capture. If it wasn't for the media, I'm not sure a lot of these things would have been unveiled about state capture. I mean, you get things like Amabungane. They had to, do everything they were doing and protect their whistleblowers and ensure that that they didn't get found out and who they were. But there's a huge concern that our government doesn't do much in protecting people with this information, with whistleblowers. And I mean, when you hear government officials speaking like this, you can understand why. Should this be a concern for journalists in the country?
So absolutely, because I think also, we're moving into a particularly important period. So this is the kind of pre-election period, and then, of course, we're going to move into the election period. And that is a particular time when leaders have got to be held to account. They've got to account for what they have done or not done. And that free flow of information is absolutely critical. I mean, it's critical all the time, but in an election period, it is even more critical. And so you want journalists to be able to go wherever they need to go, ask the hard questions. And I think maybe just a further point to make is that when your leaders are saying, oh, journalists are a problem, journalists are following us, they're problematic, it means that the rank and file are then given permission to also kind of attack journalists and to stop journalists from covering stories. So what you're wanting your leadership in all political parties to be doing is to be saying, this is the role of journalists, this is what they do, and this is why it's so absolutely critical to democracy and so particularly important during elections.
Yeah, so
that's what you're needing.
As you say, at this point in time, we know we're heading towards elections.
Yes.
We know that we have to start fastening the seatbelts, and there is a lot that's going to come out and a lot of stories that are going to be fed to journalists, and the dropping of everything, and the journalist seems to be at the center of all of this. But there needs to be cohesion. And my final question to you, although they're telling me to wrap, so if you can do this very quickly, the relationship between politicians and journalists, how are we faring in South Africa? I mean, we're hearing a lot.
Better.
How are we doing? They're better.
They are definitely better. I mean, I think under President Cyril Ramaphosa, they're definitely better.
Happy to hear that. Happy to hear that, Kate. Just these instances we need to still get over, though. Thank you very much for talking to us. Kate Skinner is the Executive Director of Sanef. Let's take a break. When we return, it'll be Sports News with Phelan.